Welcome, listeners or viewers, however you're witnessing this, to Assiduous Dust, episode number 2 of season 2. I'm your host, Joshua Corwin, and I'm so excited. Today we have with us Edward Vidaurre. I am super psyched, and I can't wait to get down into some poetry and to hear his story and dialogue with him and do the on-the-spot collaborative poem OTSCE. First off, here's a few things about Edward. I'm going to be looking at my cheat sheet. Don't tell Edward. Edward Vidaurre is an award-winning poet. He's the author of 7 collections of poetry with Pandemia and other poems. His most recent from Aston Libra Press, which was published in 2020, last year. He's the former 2018 to 2019 City of McAllen, Texas Poet Laureate. He's a 5-time Pushcart Prize nominated poet, and he's the publisher of the esteemed Flower Song Press and its sister imprint, Juventud. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Juventud Press. Vidaurre is from Boyle Heights, California. Yeah, California. And now resides in McAllen, Texas with his wife and lovely daughter. There's so much more about Edward, but he is so modest and humble and a groovy dude, and let's get down into it. Edward, how are you doing today? It's great to have you here.
Good. Thanks, Joshua. Thanks for having me. Getting ready for a cold front, but other than that, I mean, looking forward to it. Actually, it's a little warm, I guess, for this time of year, but looking forward to that cold front to come in and bundle up, enjoy.
Yeah, in California, the cold front, it's that doesn't even, when we think of cold, we think of like 57, like 60 degrees.
Right.
It's very different. Now, Edward, so I usually start by, I'll have this set question. So let's say 2 different things, a silly and a serious ways to write poetry. Is there something that is a silly way that maybe I haven't thought of writing poetry, but I'd really like to write poetry? Let's say some people have said, doing skydiving. I haven't done that and I can't wait to. Maybe I'll never do it, but why not? And other people have, for serious, maybe go to a rally and kind of a Trump rally as an investigative journalist and write poetry there and hope not to get hurt. I don't know. What's your silly and what's your serious? Yeah.
Serious and silly. I guess you're talking about a place to be inspired to write poetry, like a silly place.
To be inspired, or it's like I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it.
A silly place. That's a good one. How about I would say while you're riding on a carnival ride, I guess,
A carnival ride. I have not heard that yet.
That would be some silly. Yeah. Or hanging out at a carnival and writing silly poetry on the different things, right? On a serious one, I guess at a funeral. At funerals. Go to funerals and then take notes and then write poetry afterwards.
Yeah, that's I have not heard that one, and that's something. Yeah, that's definitely something. And there are a lot of funerals going on, or I guess a lot more, Zoom kind of stuff, and it's really sad. It's really sad. And hopefully things will get better. It's often darkest before, light. So Edward, I know that you have you wrote this thing, it is mentioned in your bio about Pandemia and other poems, and speaking of funerals and all that, that's something that's really been going on, that the whole world has been faced with. And I know your book has garnered a lot of esteemed praise, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on a copy of it. I haven't yet. Hopefully it's all sold out. We'll see. But folks, get a copy of Pandemia and other poems. What kind of brought them out? Was that mostly done writing inside? Do you find that there's a certain process? Like, who is Edward when he was composing that? And, how did you kind of struggle or deal with the internal challenges regarding writing that book, or getting yourself to write individual poems surrounding all the different issues?
I think it's more like a call to action when it comes to writing about the now and just being a poet of I guess putting yourself into history, I guess. You think back as to what was written by contemporary poets during the pandemic, and you want to make sure that you used your responsibility as an artist to document it in your art. Not saying that that's what every artist should do, but I'm sure they're inspired by what's happening around them, whether it's through music or anything, taking photography, taking photos, or even painting. There's got to be that little thing picking at their brain saying you're living through a different time, and it's got to have some sort of a muse on you, forced on you, whether you like it or not. So I started writing. Right, but it's also okay. I'm going to write about it, but there's also a way to write about it, right? So I started writing, around the time that you were hearing about it in it taking, its toll on Italy and in places in Europe, and just it was around the time when the pandemic was strong in Europe, in parts of Italy, and that. Like I said, that pending doom coming to the U.S. And so I was just paying attention to the outlets that were out there, the science and stuff like that, and not so much the politics of it, not so much what the politicians were saying, because
rhetoric.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to sell you on fear. They're trying to sell you on this. One side's trying to tell you the other one's not doing a job and whatever. And you're listening to the scientists that are, afraid and are taking precautions and are saying, hey, you need to do this. And I'm like, those are the people you need to listen to. And so started, really, really looking into that. And so I started to write. I started to write, I started to take notes, and that's just one of those things, that it's kind of like a calm before the storm workshop, like I workshop on my own with things that are fed to me, and then I work with that. That's what I do for writing on things that are happening, with
course.
Not, I don't write so much about what's happening with the news, but more like what's happening around me that affects people that I'm, wanting to defend. So that's basically, what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. And I think it is important because there's so much that isn't discussed, that isn't talked about. And indeed that, I really like this notion also of workshopping your own stuff, because as well, you kind of get to contemplate, meditate on it, and to see, how does this affect me? What's going on? I find for me, I'll go to a lot of times, I'll go masked and everything. I'll go to the park. And I find that for me, that's a place where I can just get away from it all. And there are different places or different but it's not so much as the park itself, but it's the mindset in which the park brings me, if that makes sense. And then I kind of,
Right.
okay, then I'm at a different place and I'm kind of workshopping this thing and I'm seeing how it affects me. I think that's an important thing. You know, you let things sit, and of course your process has shifted over the years. And of course, I'm guessing it's not the same. Like, for example, you had a book, Jazz House, that just recently received an award, right? And that is totally different than your process, than how your approach of pandemia. And then you have, and I bet that even though it came out like in 2019, right?
Right.
The poems were way before that, but you were a different Edward entirely. And then you go way back, you know, let's say you go back 10, 15 years, you're in a totally different Edward together. You take back when you started Flower Song Press and you're a totally different Edward. So like, I know this is a big complex things, but let's kind of imagine like where you're at different stages of different versions of Edward. And
well, you know, it's like a diary, you know. You're publishing, or you're trying to publish your life story, right? Your memories and the things that you see, the things that are snapshots of life as you go through them. You want to leave a body of work that if someone, or you become someone that people want to read upon, they'll see what you were about and what the world around you was about. I'm someone who's very forgetful, but when I go back to the things that I've written, it reminds me, I remember, and it's like I said, it's like a diary of things. So, you know, people are quick to forget. People can't wait to get over this thing. That's the truth. They can't wait to say, "Oh, remember the pandemic," and it's sad because, right. But remember, and people, you know, it's sad to say that, but people want to forget about it already because they want to go on with their lives. But there's over 460,000 people that have died from it. But they're quick to want to forget about that, and that's the state that we're in. That's how fast things work now. It's like the internet. Everything, if you don't get information fast enough, you lose patience. So that's how life is now. Life is a blink of an eye. So we have to slow it down through writing. You know, that's where we calm and we bring people to the page so that they can slow down, even if it's for 30 minutes a day. We slow them down and we bring them back to a time that's important. Exactly. We bring them back to a time and we show them something that was important, even if it was for a little while, you know. So we need to keep doing that. Otherwise, you know, and we need to be writing, because let's say somebody wanted to write about the Trump presidency and they had all these ideas of what they wanted to write. They wanted to write a book about it. Well, they never did. And guess what? He's already out of office, and you had your chance and you forgot and you didn't do it.
It's no longer relevant.
So now you have to write the aftermath. Right. So now you have to write the aftermath, or write about what you felt, or something, you know, my life during his presidency. But it's like people want to know right now, what's going on right now. So
and you don't always get to know what's going on right now.
Right. So yeah, so that's the thing, you know. We need to, like they say, keep up with the Joneses, I guess. There's got to be something like that when it comes to writing, right? But we need to stay true to ourselves. You know, we need to stay true to ourselves. We need to also write the truth, and because, like I said, it is history that we're writing down, and we don't want to go back to the literature that we read that's forced on us, that's a lie. You know, we want our children and their children, our great grandchildren, to read accurate account of history, not
Grounded
one
in
that,
truth, absolutely.
right,
Rather
not
than fallacy.
one that's, you know, made up for them to fit a rhetoric, right? So we even, you know, I'm talking poetry because that's what I write, but there's the academics out there that are doing their work to try to get, you know, their teachings into textbooks that are truth, you know. And
And then
so,
there's like, I don't know if you're familiar with Mega Sued as part of the this project she's kind of the call to arms individual with regard to she's also a friend of the Assiduous stuff, the Stanford spearheaded project of the Life in Quarantine project, which is this big thing. And it's not just with poetry, but many different sects. Let's kind of get from the individuals spanning through many different countries what's going on, and let's eventually make textbooks out of this. Let's get stuff archived. Let's get things, because we don't want this to be lost. We want to be able to study this for research purposes. And you know, I can be forgetful too. You know, I find for me, I have a natural self-forgetter. I'm kind of like my country. I want to self-sabotage somehow, but I self-sabotage internally. You know, I know meditation is good for me, but sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes I find that I can go into email la land. And I think it's important that writing, like you say, it gives that structure. And also, there's an important thing that you mentioned here is you talk about authenticity and staying true, as well as making a mark in history, as well as to be of service. I see kind of for history. And how do you know, having something that's universal will also particular and authentic is really, that's the key. How do you get that? And I'm sure that that's something that's still, you know, there's no definite answer. But how has that kind of shifted, you know, how you approach that, you know, from the inside out and the outside in, as you kind of take on what's going around you?
You know,
that's a big question.
It's overwhelming.
I understand.
Well, you know, it's overwhelming sometimes, you know, but it's just staying focused and just taking everything a bit at a time, you know, in chunks, in pieces, you know, and just tackling things as you go and not trying to do it all at once. Otherwise, you know, it can become too much, and it can become anxiety filled, and it can, you know, lead us through this, you know, tunnel that sometimes it's hard to get out of, you know.
Absolutely. And I find that tunnel, that's a daily thing where, you know, I've recently, Edward, I found that I go and I confuse busyness with work. Like I confuse, like I need to constantly be doing, or else I feel like I'm not doing anything. And that's part of, like, you talked about how the relevancy and how, you know, of social media and kind of technology, how things go. And I feel like that's part of something that's been ingrained in, is a societal shift, something that's been planted in us.
Well, you know, and it's one of those things where it's become like another appendage, you know, where people need it to survive, you know. And not everyone. I've seen people that will leave it and are happy, you know. But I mean, I've thought of it and I go, okay, I do all my marketing and I do all my, you know, stuff through the press, you know, though that's how I interact with people. That's how I get the word out. But personally, if I could just like remove myself from it and it could be just the other, you know, I feel like it would be much greater. But I mean, as an example, look at what happened to the former president when they removed them from all social media.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
It was, yes. I mean, you had other people
I feel
complaining,
like that should have
and I mean,
been done a long time ago. I had often said, I feel like there should be a law about that, about if you're the leader, the officer and commander in chief, there should be some type of thing, like some person that's kind of looking over your stuff. Honestly, there should be I don't know.
Yeah, but he did things that were very unorthodox. He didn't listen to anyone. So what I'm saying is, he's a perfect example where it crippled him. It crippled him in his way of being able to express himself. And so, that's a big persona that it happened to, and, if it happens to other people, people that aren't as big, out in the public eye that get put in like a, social media jail for a month or a week.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, now you got to find something to do that's not that, and sometimes it's good, hey, pick up a book, do things around the house, catch up on writing.
I started, I thought I was halfway through of Infinite Jest in like a week or two, but no, I'm actually, there's more to it. I'm like a sixth through, but that's pretty good. And that's something that would take me like a whole year to read. And wow, what I can do when I just, let's say I limit my social media to like an hour a day, or if that.
Yeah. Something that I found that helps to not be on the computer as long is to got one of those standing desks, and well, there's one that I have, and I put it on a counter, and I put the computer up, and I'm standing up and I work on it. And when I'm done doing what I need to do, well, there's nothing for me to do. I can't sit down. So I walk away and I go do other stuff. And then I come back and I check something, but it keeps me, active. It keeps me
rather than in the game. Yeah.
And it keeps, because I noticed that I've got this real comfortable, leather chair, and I can lounge here, and I'll turn on the music, and I could just sit here, wait for an email that I don't know is coming, but I figure, okay, I'll get an email, and really it's just nothing, and I'll start looking through, different things, and then I'll go into like, some kind of like submission listings and stuff like that. And I could be doing other things, I could be doing things that are, and I already do a lot of things, but there's that space where, okay, there's that space where I'm done and I should be done and go ahead and do other things. But I spend time, and then after a while, I'm like, man, I just wasted like half an hour doing nothing when I could have, gone and, checked that restroom. My daughter's restroom had a leak in the bowl and stuff. And all I had to do was lift the top and fix the pump, which I did today, actually. Oh, but those are the things that are not only that are important, but that'll save you money, right? Because you're stopping water from going down the drain,
and the environment too.
Right. And so it's like.
So you're saying about that's great that you did some handiwork. You got out. You moved away from just being on there.
Right. Just being productive in other things. Sometimes it's just moving away from, because you can consume yourself a lot on the things that still are important, but it can't all be that. Then you lose focus on all the other things, like the leak in the restroom, or hey, the water hose outside, it's unraveled after we watered the grass, and somebody's gonna trip, but go out there and put it back in its place. Any little thing.
Kind of a metaphor for a country in a way, the water hose.
Right. Yeah. But it's just doing the little things, the productive things to put things back in place. It's like saying, hey, it's time to stop doing this and go put everything back on the shelf. Put the clothes back
Absolutely.
on the hanger, turn off lights as you leave a room, adjust the AC, turn off the water faucet.
To be a good human being, and
Right.
I'd say a responsible citizen of this earth. And I think that's another thing that maybe as a poet, that is of great importance. And I wonder, do you happen to have a poem about, the responsibility or the environment or something that you have that perhaps you touches on certain aspects that we've been discussing that you'd like to share with us today?
Let's see.
And while you go to find that, let me ask you the most complex question that ever existed. What's your favorite color?
My favorite color?
Yes.
My favorite color it's black because it's slimming.
Because it's what? It's
Because it slims me down.
I like that. I like that. That's great. Mine is red because I once said red was my favorite color and now I have to stick to it, but it might not actually be my favorite color. Okay.
So I have a poem, right? And it's titled Feng Shui in La Casa Vidaurre. Buy a bottle of WD-40. Plant a mini forest in the kitchen. Let the roots break through the kitchen tile. Shut doors. Don't pull on fixtures. Listen to KRS-One. Hunger strike after 9 p.m. Smudge with Palo Santo and white sage. Light a candle at 3 p.m. Blow it out in the morning. Wash dishes in teams of 2. Let the music be heard in all directions of the home. Imagine.
Oh yeah. That's just beautiful. And that really hits on what we were saying also about, the kind of the environment. But you're also looking at the natural. That so works so well. A lot of these I ask and it touches indirectly, but there's that element of the natural and familiarizing it rather than looking at in a defamiliarized way and realizing that it's all around us. And that line, light a candle at 3 p.m. and blow it out. What was it at 1? What was it in the morning?
In the morning.
And that's just, that is so spot on. And there's also something about that what signifies the candle as well. I know it can be a physical candle is thinking about it, but it's also it's time to relax, to chillax, to let it breathe. And then you can blow it out.
Right.
And I think there's power there. There's definitely power there in the ability to do that. I don't know when the last time physically when I lit a candle at 3 p.m. and, shut down. I can't remember that. But maybe I should try. Maybe that's something worth doing. Maybe at 5 p.m. I can do 5 p.m.
Go for it.
So tell me about, speaking of, flowers and roots kind of sprouting. Tell me a bit more about Flower Song Press. How did that kind of root and upsurface? And I'm sure people have asked you about this, like what led to Flower Song Press? So let's make it a little interesting. What didn't lead? Maybe what? Song. Yeah, what didn't lead to Flower Song Press, or more so, rather than that, what led to it? Kind of, tell me about what was going on in your life. Where were you at? Like, let's paint a picture of Edward and kind of, go from there, like a narrative approach.
Okay, so Flower Song Press was run by David Bowles as Flower Song. He published my book, Chicano Blood Transfusion, this one here, right? So he published this book. And I started a conversation with him, I want to say about a year later. And I told him, who else are you publishing next? You know, who's your next poet? And at the time, David was winning awards, writing YA novels, poetry, and he was just doing so much, started working for the university, and basically was not going to have any more time to spend on the actual press anymore. And so he told me that he wasn't going to do it. And so I take it over it. I mean, not knowing what I was getting into. And just for the fact that I wanted, my book to have brothers and sisters. I didn't want it to end there. And so he says, yeah, let's talk about it. And I mean, I think, again, he was busy and stuff. And I think it was about a month later, we got together and talked about it. And I said, I'll do it. And, he turned over, the logo and all the information that I needed to have the press information for myself. And he says, gave me his blessing. And I just, like I said, didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that I had a vision, and I wanted to stay along the same kind of parameters of of the goal of publishing underrepresented voices, poets along the borderland, and then it just, I wanted to do not only that, but I wanted to publish, a little bit of everything. Then I had my sights on also children's books and young adult, books, because I saw that was being, while he was doing great in that area. And I've got friends that do a lot of YA novels and also children's books. And I have a 13-year-old girl, and so she was, so what can she read that I can publish and stuff like that. So we published Sensontle, Mockingbird by Daniel Garcia Ordaz. That was our first book of poetry. And then we published Odilia Galvan Rodriguez's The Color of Light. Beautiful poetry. And, it just caught fire, I'm one of those people that just, I feel like there's not enough time to do enough, and so I want to do
the same way,
and so I'm sure that after this, you can't wait to interview the next guest, because you want to keep it going. I don't know if it's a addictive personality that I have, but
I think for me, what I describe it as an addictive personality. I'm insatiable, Edward. I'm insatiable.
Yeah. I think we're called other things. I'm sure crazy is one of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. So as that, it kind of mixes into my character, even though I'm sober,
Okay. Well, the good thing is you're recovering, and you're putting your energy into better things. Absolutely. And so it's one of those things, where Flower Song became Flower Song Press, and then from there our sister imprint, Juventud Press. And so we're working on children's books. We're also still doing poetry, but we're also working on novels. Our first two novels came out in December of 2020, and it's just been a ride, man. Working with Matthew Revert out of Australia, who does some wonderful covers, and the dude's amazing. He's you know, he's just amazing, man. I can't say enough about that guy. And just have a good group of friends that are that help me out with the reading process of manuscripts. You know, so it's not just me. You
And
know,
I'm sure that
it's
that
not,
can be incredibly challenging, you know, to go through and read. And, you know, I'm sure like if you were just doing it all on your own, you would go crazy. And
right. And don't get me wrong, I do read all the manuscripts, you know, I do. But you know, I've got a weird process.
at different points.
Right. Sometimes, you know, like it's like right now I've you know, I've gotten like 9 manuscripts that all came in a period of like 3 weeks together. And so, you know, it's kind of like you read it right now and I'll read it later, you know, but you read it and then send it to
Yeah.
somebody else, and we kind of
It's
round robin
rotating
it, you know?
chairs. It's
Right,
musical chairs, but it's musical
exactly.
MSs.
Right. And so it's but it's good stuff, you know. I think I'm reading more unedited and, you know, raw work than I do complete books, you know, that are out there. Because I have so much work to do and stuff with the press. So I put a lot of my time in that. And then I also read it when the book comes out in print. And I read it with fear, of course, and trembling, because, you know, you've been the editor, and you go back and you kind of cringe, and you're afraid you're gonna fall into a mistake, you
But
know,
then
that
you
you didn't
find that it's
catch.
a
So
glimmering beauty. It's a glimmering beauty, and it's
right,
not a
right.
hole. It's not a hole.
Right, but
It's a beautiful
yeah, yeah,
sunshine.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, you know, you read it again and you're like, wow, this is great stuff, you know. And it's just so fulfilling, you know. You know, being somebody that didn't know how to read a book until after high school, I taught myself how to understand how to read and how to look at a page and understand, you know. And then thinking back now, you know, I could have given up on literature altogether. I
Could you
could have given
imagine
up
what would have
on
happened as a
anything.
result?
You know, I can't fathom it. You know, I think about it, and I just think my vocabulary would have been simple. I think I wouldn't have been able to speak with people, um, or been too shy to even carry a conversation, because I just didn't have the words, you know. And I think, you know, I've been able to, through reading, um, I'm able to connect with many people from all over. You know, I could speak with anybody from anywhere and carry a conversation, and, you know, and sometimes to surprise myself, you know, but it's from all the reading, you know, and it's all from all the words that you come across that just, you know, comes out when it's supposed to. And
So,
it's fascinating, you know. It's fascinating. And it's and you hear about people that say, I don't like to read,
oh,
and
I didn't like to read when I was young. I didn't.
right, but
I
you
hate,
hear,
and I'm right. I'm reading like Infinite Jest and like ridiculous
but
timing.
I hear of a but you hear of adults that say they don't like to read, and it's
Or
like,
they'll
I
just
don't get
watch the
upset, or
movie.
I just want them, I just wish they'd give it a chance, you know. I always say, just give it a chance, you know. Maybe read a chapter a day, or just read a few lines, you know.
I
Don't be
feel that
afraid of picking up
audiobooks are
literature.
also helpful. Audiobooks kind of
Yeah.
help to bridge the gap in between, I find. Um,
Right,
and that's
right.
something, because it's like, oh, you might not feel like it's as much like work. And I feel like that's part of the reason why people like movies also, is the sight is something that's so much valued over like the ear and listening in our culture.
Yeah.
And I wonder, you know, what were you listening to? Was there an internal inner voice? Because that must have been such a pivotal thing that you, no, I'm gonna learn to read. I'm gonna do this. whatnot, was there an inner voice? Can you remember where you were standing? Did you have an insight? What was the reasoning for that? When did it all change?
I just, it happened riding the bus to work on several occasions where I just felt stupid. I would ride the bus and I would see people on the bus reading the newspaper, magazines, paperback books, and I had nothing, on me but just myself to ride and just look out the window, and it was just me and my thoughts. But I really didn't have much to think about because there was nothing expanding it. So I would just stare at people reading, and I thought they're in another world, and I'm here, and all I could focus on is the stench of the bus and just watching people. Nowadays, I love to people watch, but I create stories with what I see. So I see them as an artist. I see them as a poet. I see them as potential.
It's a great thing to do on a date is you make up stories about people, I find. Yeah.
Right. So I see people now and I create things from whatever, like you said, whereas before I would just look at them and just, they were just other people. Now that's what it was, that's what made me want to read. And I guess I felt inadequate. I felt like I wasn't part of society that was getting ahead. I felt that if I didn't do it, I felt that I was going to get stuck, that the years were going to pass me by and I was going to just get older and stay where I'm at. And I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be able to, move ahead with people, and I didn't want to stay in a rut and, remedial. That's what it was. I think about it now.
Yeah, and looking back, it must be amazing. And there's also something that comes to mind that's very interesting is that, of looking at it, like you can't really think that much, or you can't look at certain things, and wanting that expanse, as you say, that to expand. And it's like these people or things, it's just an object. And I wonder if there's a relationship to that and kind of empathy or certain things of, let's say, certain political figures might not, said political figure might be incapable of doing, let's say. You know who I'm talking about. Listeners, viewers, you know who I'm talking about. And there might be some relationship to that. And that of empathy. And in fact, I would not be surprised if reading, in fact, enhanced your ability for empathy as well, to empathize.
I think so because it made me pay attention. It made me focus. It made me, like they say, get into other people's shoes. Whereas before it was like, that's not my problem.
Precisely.
And then when you empathize, you're like, let it be our problem. Let's fix it together. Let's find a way. Let's find a way out of it together. And it's not an easy thing to do. Not a lot of people want to do. Not a lot of people want that responsibility. It's not that they can't. It's they don't want to.
And I think that maybe with more education, in fact, there might be more a desire to, maybe that brings up a drive to want to, as you say.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Just I guess wanting to be responsible and wanting to be part of humanity, wanting to be part of the solution.
Absolutely. Do you have a poem or something that perhaps about highlighting about that moment where, or around the early or the years when, I'm on the bus, and I can't you know, I can't really read, and or something that kind of highlights the isolation that you described.
Let's see.
Either directly related or indirectly would be good.
I think I do.
Grooviness.
I think I do. Give me one second.
Sounds good. Well, you're finding that. You know, where did you get that groovy hat?
It's a place out of New Orleans called Gordon Brothers. They also have, I think their shops are in San Francisco also. Goorin. They've got some cool hats, and my wife gets them for me from there, and yeah, they're pretty cool, man. Let's see.
I love hats. I used to have a hat rack. Not wearing a hat right now, but I think that like hats are like shoes for your head. Trademark coming for that.
Yeah, I see you wear the hat.
Yes, the hat. People call it the hat. Absolutely. So you have the poem for us?
Almost.
Okay. So and also with regard to the beard, that is a very nice beard. Do you groom? Do you have to keep it even? I find for me, like I can't grow mine that long. I can't. But you know, there's must be a certain years where it's like I could be a really good Santa Claus. You know, I'm gonna let it kind of even out and get along, you know, for the holidays, you know.
I think I had it perfect this year to be Santa Claus, but you couldn't visit anybody because of the.
Oh no.
Right. So this poem is titled "Robbed at Knife Point." The bus ride was bumpy and too fast. It was definitely a weekday. I always walked to the back of the bus, window seat facing the right side, where I could see the people get on and off. I could see the gutters, the businesses opening up early, the drama of the day unfolding, lovers holding hands, stray dogs panting and rummaging through trash, the homelessness of the city, extending their hands. My view was of the grind, la lucha. I carried a backpack with books, cassette tapes, and markers for tagging, even though I sucked at it and had given up on it several years back. It was a constant for me. The day I jumped on the bus on 7th and Spring, I remember I was listening to some Roger and Zapp. I was a bit tired from the double shift I worked the day before. Between songs and reading from Rodriguez's Always Running, I heard voices, grunts, and the sound of people pushing against each other. As the bus filled up, I scooted my body and leaned my head on the graffiti-marked window and dozed off. My eyes opened up a bit later to see a short, long-haired kid, white t-shirt and Dickies pants, Nike shoes, pinche cholo. I dressed the same in my barrio. He kept looking around, hands in pockets, as if he were cold. The bus came to a stop near MacArthur Park. Want to see a melting pot? If you didn't get shot, stabbed, or drowned in the lake there, you were fortunate that day. I got robbed at knife point. This is what I remember. The bus stopped, people were getting on and off, and this kid in his teens pulled out a knife and stuck it to my neck with one hand while he took my watch and backpack with the other, jumped off the bus and walked away. The bus driver never saw it, and no one made a commotion. I watched him walk away with my bag inside. The pages of Ellison and Villaseñor became instant orphans. The bus slowly pulled away. I stared at the lake. A lone swan sat on its murky waters. I hadn't seen a swan so beautiful as that one. and haven't since. So that was my bus ride.
Oh,
That was
oh,
one of my
snap,
that was
snap,
one of
snap,
my
snap,
trips
snap,
on the
snap.
bus.
Yes, and I find that there's something that goes on here that is absolutely the bus driver didn't see it, nobody else saw it, and honestly, Edward, where's your novel? Where's your memoir? Where's your novel memoir? I want that. When's it coming out? Is it coming out next year? Should be.
I need to read novels and memoirs to find a way to write it.
There you go. That's the way that works, because that's just, it really has this tone, that and that's another thing I wondered is, have you done radio work of being on the air? Because I feel like you have the tone that you'd be a great announcer, a certain thing for radio stations. Something to add on to the pile of things to do. Absolutely.
Podcaster extraordinaire like you.
Well, speaking of, would you go and let's pile ourselves into a mountain of pudding, because only if it's gluten-free pudding and it's filled with beautiful sunshine and books, and we'll eat those books. We'll dip it in pudding, gluten-free, dairy-free for me, and then we'll eat it and we'll enjoy it and we'll let it sift through our bones and we'll float into the air and it'll all be groovy. And that means it's time for the OTSCP on the spot collaborative poem. I told you that was going to be corny and going to make no sense. Did it live up to its to the expectation?
Yeah, super corny.
Super corny? Yeah, well, super bad, super corny. Awesome. So what books do you have out for us, Edward?
I have Ghost Sickness by Luis Alberto Urrea. I have Last Waltz in Santiago by Ariel Dorfman. I have Borderlands La Frontera by Gloria Saldúa. And I have Small Hours of the Night, selected poems of Roque Dalton.
Oh, nice. And what pages do you have out for each of these?
For Ghost Sickness, I have pages 70 and 71. For Roque Dalton, I have pages 4 and 5. For Gloria Saldúa, I have pages 146 and 147. And for Ariel Dorfman, I have pages 14 and 15.
Excellent. Beautiful, beautiful books. I'm not going to show mine, but I will tell. I have Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass, whoever that guy is. Never heard of him before, just pulled it off the shelf. I have it to pages 192 and 193. So that is mine. It's so it's myself and mine, and then it goes into Years of Meteors, 1859 to 60. And then I have out Sylvia Plath, the restored edition, of course. And so I have that out at pages 48 and 49. So that is to Nick and the Candlestick, and then it goes to the first page of Berkleg. And then I have 3 out. So I have Gregory Corso, Gasoline, and the Vestal. Gasoline particularly. It's pages 30 and 31. So that's the end of Mexican impression. Yeah, it is. Yeah, Mexican impressions. So it's the end part of that, and then it's the first page of Sun. Sun is honestly one of my favorite of all Corso's poems, other than Bomb. Yeah. So the name of the game again. We kind of say, we go back and forth. We construct new lines from words and terms here, and go back and forth, and we'll see if we have a masterpiece or a masterpiece. You decide, listeners, viewers, groovy people of the earth. Edward, would you like to start off for us?
Sure.
Okay.
Ricochet, sand, men scattered, Chicano, pushing, released, poor bastard.
Agitation, I praise, years among vibrations, shrunk thirst, no wind, you ruby.
Don't believe them, dewdrops, silent, naked birds, dripped, blades, eyelash, stumbled together.
Inflammation, dry, in the lake, leads, lollipop, wake, roses change, up, peace.
Machete, rising, wild, butterfly, spit, gather, admit, him.
Nature, words bind, free, bald, hurting, sun, sundial, resigned, love, too dark.
September, angels, belly, dumb, pushing, hours, dead.
Continually living duties, isthmus of gold in a man, voices. The eye is not night, but dead, nightmare.
Ashes, ashamed, cold, without, tortillas, sewage, released, knee deep.
In the sea, hiding lozenges, glasses, dark, drip, envious relic, ire, astounded lake, change you mounted upon laws in the rugs.
Her eyelash, like heavy fluid, spit into sand. The morning, the day, stone cry, first dog, enemy in my chest.
I think that's a good place to end it. An enemy in my chest. I like that. Well, snap, 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 clap, clap, clap. Round of applause. Thank you so much, Edward. Edward Vidaurre, everyone. And thank you so much, Edward. Are there any shout outs you'd like to mention? Any links, final words before we go into that good night of internet void?
Right. Just a shout out to all the family at Flower Song Press, Juventud Press, Prickly Pear Publishing, who published Jazz House and who won the award for Best Book. Shout out to Hercules Publishing. Shout out to El Sarape Press, all the indie presses out there, to Aslan Libre Press, who believed in my Pandemia collection, and to everybody who's supporting what I do, and just, you know, believing in the work that we're putting out there. Appreciate you all, and look forward to reading your works. We have a festival coming in April. It's going to be virtual, so check us out. Let me give you the correct website so that everybody can check it out. It's let's see, valleypoetryfest.org. If you go there, you can check it out. You can see who our featured poets and writers are. You can submit to Boundless, the anthology. You can also register to be one of the poets. You get your name on one of the shirts if you register, the full registration, and just see what we're about. It's a great thing. It's 14th annual festival here in the South Texas of the Rio Grande Valley. And check out flowersongpress.com, or if you want to check out just my stuff, you can go to mine, edwardvidaurre.com. So yeah, so Joshua Corwin, appreciate you, man. Thanks for everything that you do, and
thank you so much. Absolutely. And I believe that Mega Sud and who is it? Also, Brianna Munoz are part of Flower Song Press that have been on the Assiduous stuff.
The forthcoming.
Yeah, and Brianna as forthcoming, and Brianna, in fact, she has participated in the Rio Valley of that festival, right? She's
she's Boundless,
and she said
she's
great
been in
things
Boundless
about it. So
yeah, she's been in Boundless. Our last Boundless collection.
Yeah, do a little plug for it, Yeah.
Pretty thick book. We've got Lorna Di Cervantes in here. We've got Naomi Shihab-Nye, Jeff Cannon. We have Matt Cedillo. We've got Edie Zeanda. We've got poet. We have Sheila Black. Poet from, we've got poets from India, Israel, Iran, England, Asia, Africa, Albania, Australia, South America, Puerto Rico, and Mexico, and all over the U.S. Yeah. And so it's international, and there's we've got a lot of submissions this year.
Yeah, so why not submit and fill up Edward's invoice mailbox, because he needs more filled for his email, so that way the story goes on. Thank you so much, Edward. It's been a real pleasure, and have a groovy day.
Thank you, brother.